morning, everybody. This is Bobby Sanchez. I'm with the Wordsmith LLC, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about my resume service. I want to thank each and every customer that I've had in the last few years for their kindness and understanding and allowing me to do their resume. I've learned a great deal about different occupations. I've got to talk to a whole bunch of fascinating people, and I have definitely been wiser for the experience. So anyway, first let's get that out of the way. I have a YouTube channel called the Wordsmith LLC, and I do hope that you'll like and subscribe to it because I plan on continuing my efforts to educate people about resumes, as I continue to do them for the public. My main media, so to speak, of gaining service and finding service is through LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a lot going for it. It really does. It does sometimes act like a corporation, which means that they have very little to no consideration for individual circumstances. But if you can fight your way to the level where they can see you, you'll be okay. Anyway, so onward and upward, as they say. So anyway, this is Sunday, and it is a great day outside. It's a little overcast. They say we might have rain. Here in Texas, it's a little warm. Little warm for my taste. I happen to like cold weather better because my humble philosophy, you can put on as many clothes as you want, and no one's going to say anything. But in the summer, when you get too hot, you can't take off too many clothing or too much clothing, or you'll get arrested. So personally, I tend to run a little hot anyway, and I tend to be a polar bear, which means sometimes I run the AC in the wintertime. People in Minnesota might think I'm crazy, but actually here in Texas, when you have a 76-degree day, I run what makes me comfortable. I figure I'm going to pay for the electricity. I'm going to use it to my advantage. So that's my philosophy on that. Anyway, getting back to resumes. I wanted to make this video to talk a little bit about the services that I provide with regards to resumes. I feel that some things need to be clarified and enhanced. The explanations need to be clarified and enhanced, and in some cases expanded. I'm sure this will not be the last video I do on an informational basis in this regard, but I do think that this is relevant. And for those of you who are interested in my services, these are things you should keep in mind. Okay. First of all, I get all levels of occupations who wants resumes. Okay, anyone from someone who has been a custodian for a long time, and they need a resume to apply for a promotion or what have you, or maybe a truck driver who is wanting to get an instructor position, who wants to get a promotion in his career, or her. I've not had the pleasure of many female truck drivers, but the person I have in mind is a man, so that's why I said that. Professional people, software developers, engineers, doctors, nurses, people in the professions that you don't hear from every day. Police officers, detectives, security people, former soldiers, present soldiers, just all kinds of different occupations, a lot of times have a resume. And these days, just about every level of employment requires some sort of resume. It used to be that if you went to the blue collar occupations, such as, being a worker in a fast food restaurant, for example, or you're a day laborer, or you are a heavy equipment operator. Those people didn't need resumes. All you needed was the application and good interview skills, and pretty much you ended up with the job if your skills were good. So nobody needed a resume, but that has basically changed. The economy, in my opinion, has moved from the, you get a life, you get a life, right? I need one of those. You get a job and you stay with that company until you retire. Those days are long gone. We are now in what some people call a gig economy, a contracting economy, whereas you go in and you work for a company for a certain amount of time. They have a project they need you to work on. You work on that project, you complete it, and then you move on. There's no such thing as a quote unquote permanent job anymore. The word permanent has become a complete misnomer, because if you happen to be fortunate enough to get a job that has benefits, um, then you still have no security, because you are at their mercy. You could be let go, and it doesn't matter. It's no longer a matter of, well, you did a bad job and your performance is poor, we're letting you go. Now it's nothing personal, but we don't need your services anymore, and you need to leave the premises. Too sweet. So, nothing personal there, but there you go. So anyway, that's the kind of thing that job seekers have to deal with now. And that part makes me almost glad that I'm old enough to retire, because that way, if you work on your own and you're your own boss and you fire yourself, you're hard enough on yourself. You don't need someone standing over you saying, nothing personal, but we don't need you anymore. So we're going to turn your life upside down, and we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And we're going to, we just don't need you. Nothing personal, but we don't need you. We don't want you around anymore, because we don't need your services. And people are supposed to say, okay, all right, thank you for the ride, and I liked working here, and I'm going to get up and move on, and I'm going to find another job, and I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to make just as much money as I did here, and life goes on. Well, life only goes on to a certain point. It does reach the point where it doesn't go on anymore, where you get old enough and you're no longer wanted. Your skills aren't wanted, you aren't wanted, and stereotypes abound about how you're set in your ways, and you're sick a lot, and all this kind of stuff. And granted, there are people out there, but that doesn't apply to a whole genre. That doesn't apply to a whole bunch of people, in the same category. Everybody over 65, or everybody over. I'm 63, okay? I had no plans to retire, but I was out of work a year and I was forced to retire. So, those who follow my channel are probably sick of hearing that, but I'm going to continue to talk about it, because it is a thorn, a burr under my saddle, as they say. And it will remain until my situation changes. Okay. So anyway, getting back to resumes. Let's get back to the resumes. All right. Let's talk a little bit about, you hire me to do a resume. The payment has been made, and I always call people and talk to them about what their job search is, where they've been, what they're doing now, and what do they want to do in the future. In other words, what do you want to do when you grow up? That kind of thing. So I talk to them, and I answer the questions I have about, jobs and careers and stuff like that, because I'm a recruiter with 27 years experience. I do have experience in that regard, and and I'm qualified to give advice in that regard. So I do. Okay, I pass on any information that I have regarding their particular situation. If I don't have that information, I'm certainly not going to give them any kind of lies or any kind of made up situations. But at any rate, one of the things that comes up is, what I do with the resume. Okay, some people, after they receive their first draft, they say, well, you didn't change very much. What's going on here? Am I not getting what I paid for? What you're getting paid for is my expertise in knowing how to use those words, and where to use them, and where to move them around, and that kind of thing. I have never, and I will never, completely rewrite your resume. That's not what I'm here for. If I do a resume from scratch, that's not a rewrite. That is a composition. That's a different thing. But if you have a resume and you present it to me, which I do request, if you have one, I need something to build on. Okay, you give me a resume and I look at it, and after talking with you about what you want to do, I'm not going to completely rewrite your resume. I'm going to bring out those skills that I think you want to present based on our conversation. Okay. I'm going to bring out those skills, and I'm going to, I'm going to emphasize them. I'm going to fix the grammar if I can. I'm not an expert grammar person, but I use software to help me do that. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a grammarian because I'm not. Okay. Most of what I learned about the English language, I learned from studying German, believe it or not. So anyway, what I do is I take those words and I bring out the skills that I think you want to present in your resume. If that involves changing 200 words, adding 200 words, taking away 200 words, fine. If it involves changing 5 words, if it involves putting a comma into something or taking a comma out, if it's, my expertise is knowing what to do. Okay, it is not to rewrite your resume. So those of you who expect me to do that are going to be in for a sore disappointment because I will not do that. Okay, that's not what you're paying me for. The next thing that comes up, I've got a list over here. Hold on. Okay. Talk a little bit about formatting. Okay, every resume has a format, and people of my generation, when they grew older in the job market, it was always taught that there's a certain way that you prepare a resume. You make it look nice, for starters. You always spell everything completely and correctly, and you use the proper formatting when necessary. That kind of thing. In today's day and age, okay, here it is, February of 2020. In today's day and age, what we do is we many times will be asked to send a resume through into an email. Okay, that email is connected to a computer. That computer is connected to various types of software. Recruiters recruiters in the industry refer to those as ATS, or applicant tracking systems. Okay, just about every company has them because it enables the company to thoroughly and fairly determine what job qualifications a person has. And it enables the person who does the hiring to do a thorough search of people with certain skills so that nobody gets left out. And that in and of itself is a good thing. Okay. We don't want anyone left out. Anybody, I don't care if you're a Martian from outer space. I don't care what kind of person you are. If you have the skills and you have the proper qualifications, you should be considered for the position. So therefore, resumes have to be friendly with the computer. And that's what I do. I write what I call a computer-friendly resume. Okay. I use a font that does not cause misunderstanding in the parsing software that the application uses. So in other words, when someone goes into that application and they decide to do a keyword search, and you happen to have those keywords in your resume, your name's going to come up and your resume's going to come up, and they're going to be able to read what you submitted. You're not going to get a whole file full of symbols, or for those of you in the know, you're not going to get a pile of dingbats. Okay, dingbats are little tiny symbols. They're if you were to put them all in a string, they'd look like cuss words. That's the kind of thing they are. They're little and they're cute, but not in a resume. They're not little. They're not cute at all. Okay, because those symbols have replaced your words that you put in there, and made sure that that nobody could read the resume. And that's one thing we want to avoid. Now, over the years, granted, there has been major improvement in the applicant tracking systems that are used now, and that doesn't happen very often. But I still will not use a fancy font. I'm not going to use Courier. I'm not going to use Times New Roman. I'm not going to use anything that has serifs. If you know what a serif is, it's those little things that, like if you look at a T and it has little tails hanging off the edges of the T, those are called serifs. And I don't use any font with a serif. Okay. So, those are the kind of things that causes those hiccups. So what I use is a font called Arial. It's very specific. It is very easy to read. It is very unlikely that the computer will misread it. Okay. Same goes for bolding. I don't use bolding. Okay. What I do use is a capital. I use capital letters. I use punctuation and those kinds of things. But one thing I don't use bolding, and I don't use fancy fonts. Okay. Now, there's nothing to say that once you get your copy of the resume, that you can't go in and change the font. You can do that. That's entirely your affair. What you do with your copy of the resume is entirely up to you. If you want to bold things, if you want to use a different font, if you want to be fancy, that's entirely up to you. But my advice to that is that you will take and just physically hand that resume over to the interviewer, and you will not submit it through a computer. Because if you do, the chances are very high that it's going to be misread and your resume is not going to be readable to the people who need to read it. Okay. So that's why I don't do specific formatting. Okay. If you know that with a soft, what I call a soft copy, it's what the information that's on the computer. It's an attached file. It's digital. Okay. Those kinds of things are, they are just going to be uh, changeable very easily. Okay. And the next thing, let's see. Okay. Some people have requested a hard copy. Okay. Now, I don't generally do hard copies on fancy paper. If you want that, I can give it to you, but it'll charge, you'll pay extra for it. Okay. But what you can do, and it's very easy to do, all you need to do is take your resume that I sent you through email and you print it out on nice paper. Okay. After you've done all the bolding and the format changes that you want to make, you can print it out. It's very easy to do. It's not like you have to type it. Okay. So, uh, those three things are the main things I wanted to talk about today. Okay. Um, like I said, I enjoy doing resumes, and I am still looking for work as a recruiter. I have 27 years experience, and I'm hoping that someone out there will, look past the fact that I have gray hair and allow me to use my brain again. I really like using my brain. I figured, I was given one and I don't want to lose it. Okay. So, on that note, I want to thank you again for looking at this video. And if you like what you see, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is called Wordsmith LLC. And I thank you for your time. And I thank you for your business. And I hope that you have a great day. This is Bobby Sanchez signing off.